Nothing good happens when you end up where you shouldn't be. It wasn't my fault. I was at a stoplight, and a guy pulled up next to me. He gestured for me to roll down my window. "You have a flat tire," he said. I told him thanks and pulled into the Walmart parking lot on the right. I got out and looked around. Damn, there was a screw head screwed into the tire tread and air was slowly leaking out. Great. Now what now? I decided to go inside and buy a jar of that slime. When I got back, I pulled the screw out. Big mistake. The air started coming out with a hiss. I screwed it back in and filled up at the gas station in the parking lot. I was only 15 miles from home and checked it several times. If the air got too little, I put in a can of slime. There was a store about 5 miles from home, and in the driver's side mirror I saw that the tire was getting quite low. I pulled into the store, but there was no air. It was time to check the slime. I stuck it in the tire and some green slime came out. I guess they don't call it slime for nothing. But the hissing of air coming out stopped. I was about to get back in the car when I noticed a pickup truck pull up. It was one of those giant ones with huge tires. It sat so high up that it would have required a ladder to climb into it. I recognized that pickup from somewhere. The door opened and a tall, blonde-haired guy stepped out. He was wearing cowboy boots and a huge belt buckle. I giggled a little, but halfway through it went away. The passenger door opened and a beautiful woman with raven wing-colored hair jumped out of the car. I definitely recognized her. It was Rachel, the woman I'd been married to for the past 18 years. What the hell? I parked off to the side and they didn't even notice my car. It was a company car, one of those little box-shaped imports, and I guess it wasn't very noticeable. As they entered the store, they were holding hands and she was laughing in his face. I felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't move. All I could do was stand there like a fool. Now I remembered where I'd seen this guy before. He worked at the same company as Rachel. She was the office manager at a mental health clinic, and he was one of the customer service specialists. I saw the truck outside their building. The question was, what was Rachel doing with it? I couldn't remember his name. Finally, it occurred to me, Jerry Garner. The question was, why wasn't Rachel at work? I was going to find out. I walked back to the car and waited. He helped her into the seat as they came out of the store, carrying cups of coffee. They roared out of the driveway and I followed at an inconspicuous distance. They pulled up in front of our house and he pulled into the garage. The door was down and I couldn't see anything else. I sat there for about 30 minutes, but the thought of the tire made me nervous. I kept checking it, but if it was down, I couldn't see it. 2 hours later, the door opened and they drove past me. I held the file folder in front of my face, but I don't think they would have noticed. She sat directly across from him, and they were too busy looking at each other to notice anything else. Rachel didn't leave until 5, and now it was 2:30. I had plenty of time. First, I had to go into the house and see what I could find there. At 4, I had to pick up Toby, and I had no idea what I was going to tell her. Toby was my 15-year-old daughter. I couldn't imagine what I would find inside, but maybe I would get some answers. When I entered the house, all was quiet. I could hear the dripping of the faucet I was going to fix in Toby's bathroom. That was the only sound other than the whisper of air coming out of the air conditioning vents. I looked around but didn't see anything out of the ordinary. I checked upstairs. The bed had been changed. Fresh sheets. My heart dropped like a stone. I pressed my back against the wall and slid to the floor. I felt numb. There seemed to be only one rational explanation. I sat like that for probably 30 minutes. My mind was in free motion. I couldn't make sense of my thoughts and felt as if I had been drugged. My stomach rumbled, and I stood up and opened a Sprite. I was hot and sweaty, so I went back into the bathroom. I fumbled for a washcloth in the toilet, wet it in the sink, and washed my face with cold water. After washing my face, I felt a little better. And then I noticed something. The floor of the shower room was wet. They were showering before going back to work. I walked back into the bedroom and sat on the edge of the bed in a daze. The bed my wife and her lover had just left. At that thought, I jumped up and looked at her in horror. This was a crime scene. I had no idea what I was going to do. Well, I was going to divorce Rachel. That went without saying. But I didn't have any ideas. I didn't know any lawyers. I had no idea what to do. And I needed to get Toby out of school. Toby. What was I supposed to tell her? I walked out to my car feeling like I'd been drunk for 10 days straight. My head was throbbing, and I looked like I was dreaming of death. I was in no condition to drive, but I couldn't keep Toby waiting. I suddenly realized that she was the only being in my life that I could truly count on. My baby was going to be fine. I had to take care of it. Whatever I did, everything had to take her opinion into account. When I stopped in the row of cars, I saw her waiting at the door of the school. She was walking down the sidewalk to her car, so beautiful that my heart snapped. Toby had her mother's hair and skin, dark, almost Mediterranean. She had the most impressive eyes I'd ever seen. They seemed dark brown like her mother's, with gold and green veins. The doctor called them hazel, but I'd never seen anything like them. She was tall like me, with long, honey-brown legs and beauty. She opened the back door and shoved her backpack inside. Once inside, she leaned in to kiss me and froze. "Daddy, what's wrong?" she asked. "Are you sick? Did something happen? Is Mommy okay? What's wrong, Daddy?" Her voice rose and I heard a note of fear in it. I had to say something. "I'm fine, kitten," I said. "No one's hurt or sick or anything. I need to talk to you, Toby. Let's go to the park and I'll just let myself hold you and talk to you for a minute, okay? Don't ask me any more questions until we get there, okay?" "Okay, Daddy, but you're scaring me," she said. "I know, kitten, but it's going to be okay," I told her, hoping it wasn't a lie. The drive to the park only took 5 minutes. I had rocked her 1,000 times on that swing. Rachel and I sat on the benches and watched her play on the equipment. Happy times. Will my whole life consist of nothing but memories of happy times? Nah. We walked over to one of the benches and she took my hand in hers, wiggling her arms as she had done since she was a tiny baby just learning to walk. We sat down, and I struggled to find the words to begin. "Just tell me, Daddy," she said. "I can handle this." "Well, I'm not sure I can handle it," I said. The story came out. I told her everything. Everything I'd seen. Everything I'd felt. And the tears rolled down my cheeks like a river. She held my hand, and when the fountain of words and feelings dried up, she pressed herself against me. "This doesn't sound good, Daddy," she said. "We should go home and ask Mom about it. I guess it all depends on what she tells us. I know it looks bad, but we don't know enough. We have to talk to her." I kissed the top of her head. My heart raced with pride. My baby girl was so much braver than I was. She tugged my hand until I stood up. "Do you want to go?" I asked her. Her eyes were shining. She had just gotten her driver's license. A cloud flashed in her beautiful eyes, but it passed quickly. She drove home carefully, and Rachel's car was parked in the garage. That was it. She met us at the door, hugged and kissed each of us. You'd think she wasn't a cheating whore. Either she was an Oscar-winning actress or I had misread the whole situation. "Would you like takeout tonight?" she asked. My treat. "I think we need to talk to you, Mom," Toby said. "Okay, everything okay, kiddo?" "I don't know," Toby said. "Let's find out." We walked into the house and I sat down on the couch next to Toby. Rachel remained seated on the hideous chair she just had to have. "What's wrong?" she asked. There wasn't an ounce of concern on her face. "How was your day?" I asked. She looked at me curiously. "The usual," she said. One of the company representatives brought lunch from the onion basket. It was very crowded, and I hardly had a spare minute. "Why do you ask that?" "So you were in the office all day?" Toby asked. "Of course," she replied. "What kind of questions are these? What's going on?" "So you weren't at that house this afternoon with Jerry Garner?" I asked. Her face went pale. "Of course not," she said. "Are you accusing me of something, Oliver?" "I saw you," I told her. "What? You didn't see anything," she stammered. "What are you trying to do? He's lying, Toby. I've been in the office all day. You can ask Angel." "No, I don't think he's lying, Mom," Toby said. "I think you're lying. I'm not going to ask Angel. She'll lie for you." "I think I'm going to call David Jones. He's your boss, right? I don't think he'd lie for you." "What's his number?" "He's gone for the night, Rachel said. "I'll have him call you tomorrow. What are you two doing? Trying to trick me or something? You think you can just come in here and try to trip me up? What are you accusing me of?" I guess she thought the best defense was a good offense. I think you lied to yourself, I told her. You lied to yourself, Rachel. All three of us know you lied. Why did you do it? I could see the wheels turning in her head. Okay, I was here, she said. That's the reason I didn't want to tell you. I knew you'd give me the third degree and try to accuse me of something. No one has accused you of anything, Toby said. I, on the other hand, am accusing you. You tried to make me believe Daddy was a liar. You tried to make him look like a liar to cover up your lies. What are you lying about, Mom? Are you having an affair with that asshole? You don't even know him, Rachel said. Why do you say he's an asshole? I've dated him twice, Toby said. The way he looks at me makes me want to take a bath, but it doesn't matter. Are you having an affair with him? Rachel's eyes ran from one place to another for a moment. She looked like a trapped animal. I didn't mean for it to turn out this way, she finally said. I wasn't ready. You weren't ready for what? Toby asked. I just fell in love with Jerry, she said. She looked at me. I'm sorry, Oliver, but it just happened. We work very closely together, you know that. I don't know. He's like the other half of my soul. We just connected and there was nothing I could do about it. We love each other. I was going to tell you when we were ready. As soon as we can both get a divorce, we'll get married. I'm so sorry. I didn't want you to find out this way. Toby, it's going to be okay. You'll still be able to see your dad whenever you want. Jerry has a very nice house on the lake. He has a daughter too, you know. He likes you, and will be very happy. Are you crazy? Practically exploded Toby. I'm not going to live with that asshole. He'll probably sneak into my bedroom at night to molest me. You're right. I'll see Dad whenever I want because I'll be living with him. I won't see you, though. How could you? She turned on her heels and went upstairs to her room. I heard the lock on her door click. Rachel turned and looked at me. She'll get over it, she said. Jerry's a really nice guy, Oliver. I think you'll like him. I'm sorry, but I need to be happy. Jerry makes me happy, and that's all. I just stared at her. What kind of person was this? It was like she'd been kidnapped or something. I wasn't about to argue or discuss anything with a dangerous lunatic. Whatever you say, Rachel, I said. When are you moving out? Moving out? She asked. No, I don't have anywhere to go. Jerry's married, and there's nothing we can do unless we tell his wife. We'll all have to get a divorce and see how the settlement goes before we know what to do. No, you're moving out, I told her. I'm giving you 3 days? Her jaw dropped. What the hell are you talking about? You can't kick me out of my own house. For that matter, you're the one who has to move out. You're forgetting something, I said. This is my house. I owned it before I met you. It was paid for and I owned it before we were married. The house is not marital property, it's mine. My name is on the deed, yours is not. No, you're moving out of my house. Where? She asked. You're just going to throw me out on the street? I don't care where, I said. Maybe you'll get a room at the Cheating Whore Motel. Maybe one of those ones that rent by the hour, you know? That's where you whores do your dirty deeds, right? Her eyes filled with tears. That really hurts, Oliver, she said. You don't have to call me names. I wasn't trying to fall in love with Jerry, it just happened. We just matched, and I realized I had to be with him. I wasn't trying to hurt you. Ah, you just accidentally hurt me, I said. That's like falling while running with a stick in your hand and poking your eye out. My mom always warned me about that. Now I understand how it happens. Well, that's all right then. It was an accident. You don't have to be so sarcastic, she said. Why can't you just accept the fact that we love each other, Oliver? I don't know, Rachel, I said. Maybe it has something to do with the fact that when I left this morning, you told me you loved me. And now you're telling me you love him. I guess I'm just a little confused. I love you, Oliver, she said. I'll always love you. I'm just in love with Jerry. Oh, that explains it then, I said. You've told me every day for the last 18 years that you were in love with me, Rachel. I thought that's why we got married. We were in love. I guess I was deluded. Oh no, we were in love. She tried to take my hand. I shook it off. You have 3 days, Rachel. If you're not out in 3 days, I'll have the sheriff remove you and throw your shit in the driveway. Please, Oliver. She was scared now. It doesn't have to be that way. We can still be friends. Jerry wants to be your friend too. We have Toby to think about. I told you I love you and I don't want to lose you as a friend. We've been together too long for you to just give that up. I just stared at her for a minute. I could feel all that sadness, all that loss fading away, and being replaced by a wave of heated anger. You must be out of your mind, Rachel, I said. Friends? With you? With that asshole? I'm guessing no. You need to tell that piece of shit that if he sees me, it's only for a short time and then he'll run away as fast as he can. As far as you're concerned, you're the enemy, Rachel. I'm gonna burn your house down. You have 3 days, and then I never want to see your whore ass again. I'll talk to a lawyer in the morning and you'll get your divorce as soon as possible. I turned and walked away into the bedroom, leaving her standing there making noises. This was everything to me. She followed me around, continuing with her friend's nonsense as I moved her things into the spare bedroom. There were more clothes in her closet than I could carry, so I just threw them on, carried the armful to the spare bedroom, and hung them in the closet. She came out after me. She stood there for a while, yapping and watching me. But when she went to hang up her clothes, I took advantage of the situation to leave and lock the bedroom door. I heard her walking down the hall, but she tried the knob and left. A few minutes later, Toby texted me. Are you okay, Daddy? Yeah, kitten, how are you? I texted back. No, but I will be, she replied. Okay, love you, I sent. Text me if you need anything. Will you drive me to school in the morning? She asked. I don't want to ride in the car with her. CC. I crawled into bed and lay there for a few hours trying to figure out what I was going to do. I must have dozed off around 3 and then my phone alarm rang. I got up, took a shower, and called my boss. I told him I was getting a divorce and needed a few days off. He told me to take as much as I needed and explained everything properly, for which he was sorry. I went and made coffee, had a cup or two, and made breakfast for Toby and me. She came down in time, looking as lovely as ever to me, and pounced on breakfast. After a while, Rachel came in and had a cup of coffee too. She tried to talk to us, but we ignored her. It was time to take Toby to school, and Rachel asked if he was ready. Toby just looked at her, turned to me, and asked, Are you ready, Daddy? I jingled my keys and she grabbed her backpack. Okay, you can act like 2-year-olds if it makes you feel good, Rachel said. She stepped back, grabbed her purse, threw us another look, and left. I drove Toby to school and she kissed me on the way. I sat and watched her walk into the school. I thought about my friend Dan. He had just gone through a divorce and I decided to call him and see what kind of lawyer he used. He didn't recommend his lawyer. He told me that I should use his wife's attorney. He gave me a name and I looked up the number. When I called, a woman picked up the phone and left me on the line after I told her what I needed. She agreed to meet with me in the afternoon and I took all the usual steps. We had an investment and there wasn't much I could do about it. I could make sure she didn't have large credit card bills, so I called and lowered the limits on our cards to $500. That couldn't help my style either, of course, but I'll be damned if I'm going to finance her little scheme. My meeting with Elizabeth Baxter didn't start off well. She made some assumptions, and I had to dissuade her of them before I could get to work. She assumed I was leaving Rachel for a newer model. You need to think again, I told her. She was having an affair with a coworker, he's married, and they're both planning to divorce and marry each other. I apologize, she said. I will not represent anyone who makes such moves as you say. I can't look at myself in the mirror. I understand, I said. We have a daughter. I want to minimize the consequences. Do you think it's possible for me to get custody of her? It's possible, she said. Theoretically, it's just as likely that one parent gets custody as the other. In practice, fathers rarely get custody, especially of female children. How old is she, and would she want to stay with you? She says she wants to, and she's 15, I said. Nah, that will make a big difference in the court's decision, she said. In this state, children over 14 have the right to choose, and the wishes of younger children are always considered. If she was very young, you wouldn't have a chance. Having a primary residence and the fact that a 15-year-old wants to stay with you should be an important part of the custody agreement. It shouldn't be an issue. Just do the best you can, I said. I drove home and wondered what I was going to do. I was going to do something, but it had to be legal. Going to jail would cost me, Toby, and I wasn't going to risk it. What avenues were open? Burning down houses. You have to be careful not to burn down your own. It would take a lot of thought and planning. I suspected his wife was as clueless as I was, so the first step would be to put her on notice. I needed to make a list. Of course, I was going to put her family on notice. Rachel's mom and dad loved me, and of course loved Toby, so putting them on notice was a priority, but I wasn't sure how to do it. Making sure all our friends knew was also on the agenda. And I thought I could stir up such a storm on social media that they would take an interest in life. That was the first item on my list. She started a Facebook account for our family. I played around with it a bit, used Messenger a bit, and realized what was up. I searched the internet and found that good old Jerry's wife had done the same thing. I screenshot some photos and posted on Rachel's page that we were getting divorced, that she had found her soulmate. In Jerry by posting his picture. I changed my password and logged out. I was feeling good. I wondered how long it would be before her friends and family started hogging her phone and Facebook page. I hoped the asshole's wife would understand what this was about. I didn't know her and felt some guilt for the barrage of shit that would come down on her, but if she was like me, it was better to know than to remain in the dark. I called my mom. The conversation went about as badly as I'd anticipated, but after the initial disbelief, she simply said she'd tell Dad and that if I needed anything, they'd be there for me. I decided to let Rachel tell her parents herself. We were close, and I didn't want to be the cause of the estrangement. Besides, I had no idea what I was going to tell them. For some reason, the phrase, "Your daughter is a cheating whore," didn't seem like the perfect message. They'd probably shoot the messenger. Not a minute later, things started to fall apart. Around 2 in the afternoon, Rachel's number popped up on my phone. I answered, and she was furious. "You're an asshole." Her first salvo gave me great pleasure. "You couldn't leave it at that, could you? I know you blocked me on Facebook. Clean that shit up. Jerry's wife doesn't know. All my friends call me and ask me what happened. My parents know. I'm telling you, Oliver, put that shit away." "No, you're not my boss," I told her. "What are you, 5 years old? Put that shit away, Oliver, I'm telling you." "Why?" I asked. "You should be happy. Everyone can get used to you and your soulmate being just that. Are you ashamed that people know you're a cheating whore, Rachel?" "I'm not." She stopped. She had obviously realized the absurdity of what she was about to say. "Oliver, please take it off. It wasn't supposed to be like this. You lost all ability to choose what he would be like once you cheated," I told her. "All rights to attention, all claims to my respect or even courtesy are gone. I told you, you're the enemy now, Rachel. Deal with it." I ended the conversation. The phone buzzed again, but I ignored it. It was time to pick up Toby. I told her the results of my conversation with Elizabeth Baxter, and while she was glad that she was likely to be with me, overall, she wasn't happy at all. "What's wrong with her, Papa?" she asked. "You know I love her, but she's always been a little strange. I never felt she was grown up, not the way you are anyway. I always felt like you had 2 kids, her and me. Haven't you ever noticed?" "Not like that," I said. "Now that you mention it, she's always been impulsive, but she's always been that way. I never thought she'd do something like this." "Well, we'll have to tough it out," she said. "Daddy, I don't ever want to be in the same house with that freak without your presence. I don't care what you have to do. Just make sure it doesn't happen, okay?" "I'll do my best," I promised. We bought pizza on the way home, and I was just enjoying my second slice when my phone buzzed. It was Bob, Rachel's dad. I wasn't expecting it. I told Toby who it was, and she told me to put it on speaker. He got straight to the point. "Oliver, I don't know what exactly is going on, but Rachel came here last night and asked if she could stay with us. Care to explain how that happened?" "Did you ask her?" I replied. "She said you kicked her out." "Well, yes, but did she tell you why?" "No, she said she was going to explain but wasn't ready." "No. Are you sure you don't want to wait for her explanation?" I asked. "Can't you just tell me?" he asked. "She was having an affair with Jerry Garner, the guy where she works. He's planning on divorcing his wife. She was planning on divorcing me, and they're dating," I said. "What, that's crazy, Oliver? How do you know that?" "I caught them together yesterday," I said. "Besides, she told me." "Are you sure you didn't mishear?" he asked. Toby spoke up. "Hey, Grandpa, I was listening. Dad put me on speakerphone. No miscommunication. I was there when she told him." "I'm sorry, Grandpa. I love you." She sobbed, and he heard it. When he spoke again, his voice cracked. "Don't cry, my love, please. Just be strong, okay? I love you too, and so does Grandma. I'll try to talk some sense into your mom. Oliver, are you still here?" "Yeah, I'm sorry about that, Bob." Don't worry about Toby. You're her grandparents, and nothing will change that anymore. I know you love Rachel and will do what you have to do. I respect you more than I have words to tell you. I hope you don't hate me when this is over. That will never happen, he said. I'll find out what's going on. Call me if you need anything. It went better than I'd feared. Stuff happens, and you do the best you can. There is no need to detail what happened during the divorce process. Most people know plenty of people who have gone through it. It was long, painful, and never once got better. Rachel was clearly delusional. She imagined she would get custody of Toby. That didn't happen. Miss Baxter was as good as advertised. I got full custody based on Toby's desire to live with me, and after hearing from Toby in a private meeting, the judge ruled that Rachel was entitled to unlimited visitation, but not the kind where Toby was alone with her and Jerry Garner. In any case, it became unimportant. His wife divorced him, but it seems the whole soulmate thing was a bit exaggerated, at least on his part. 2 weeks after I found out about their affair, he was ready for new conquests. All those grandiose plans evaporated like fog on a sunny day. 7 months passed before the divorce became final. Rachel had changed her mind. I was surprised when at the second court hearing she asked the judge to schedule counseling. Neither Miss Baxter nor I could say anything, nor did it seem to matter, and the judge ordered it. We were to have 8 to 10 sessions. We got some queer old hippies. At the first session, we were asked to state our goals. Rachel's goals were long and complicated. She seemed to think that I should realize that the pursuit of her happiness was the primary purpose of the universe, and that I should realize that she didn't wish for evil, only happiness. My goal, on the other hand, was much simpler. "What is your purpose in these classes, Mr. Berryman?" he asked. "My goal is to end them," I replied. Our spiritual advisor frowned. "Mr. Berryman, do you really not want to address the issues that have brought your marriage to this state?" "I'm sorry, Mr. Rodman, but it wasn't my problems that brought my marriage to this state, and I'm really not interested in working on them. I'm quite happy with my problems, and I intend to die with them." Rachel was just as horrified as Mr. Guru and didn't hesitate to take the bold step. "Oliver, how are you going to get back on track if you won't at least discuss it?" "I don't want to," I said. "Let me make this clear for both of you. I don't need to get back on track or work things out. I'm here by court order. I'll do whatever I need to do to fulfill that order, and then we'll go back to court and get a divorce. That's my plan. Do you know that if I go back to the judge and tell him you refuse to cooperate, you could be held in contempt of court?" Mr. Patguide asked. "I don't know about that," I said. "You mean if you go back to the judge and lie? These sessions are recorded. I'm sure my attorney would love to subpoena you and expose your perjury. I'm here. I'll do whatever you say. You asked me what my goals were, I told you what they were. You see, I'm cooperating." He blushed. "I'm sure the judge expected you to try to resolve the problems between you," he said. "I'm not responsible for the judge's expectations," I told him. "I'm only responsible for my own." He tried to make things more complicated. He gave me homework assignments that required a lot of time to spend with Rachel, and she worked diligently to wear me out. "Oliver, what would it take to get you to give up on the divorce and work things out?" she asked. "God's providence," I answered her. She waited for me to explain, but I said nothing. "What do you mean by God's providence?" she asked at last. "Well, if you have a way to turn back time and not entertain good old Jerry, that would work," I said. "Otherwise, I've never heard of anyone other than God having that kind of power." "Do you have any powers you haven't told me about, Rachel?" "Well, other than the ability to attract other men with your feminine charms." We continued to do this boring exercise, repeating mindless mantras, and finally it was over. We returned to court and the judge asked if we had made any progress. "Your Honor, there is no likelihood that my client will remain married to his wife," Elizabeth Baxter said. "We would like the divorce to be finalized as soon as possible. My client and his daughter have already delayed this process long enough." Apparently the judge agreed, because 10 days later the decree arrived in the mail. Toby saw her mother quite often because she loved her grandparents very much and spent a lot of time with them. Every once in a while, Rachel would plan something that Toby agreed to do with her, but it was never the same. She socialized with her friends, and one of them was at the top of her list. It was a petite blonde named Sabrina. It seemed like she practically lived with us. She was as cute as a month-old kitten and as sweet as honey. I was happy to have her, and they started involving me in their activities. One of their favorite activities was water skiing. We had a boat, and when summer vacation started, we would go to one of the nearby lakes on Saturdays. On Monday, they asked me if we could go to the lake for the weekend, take our RV, and stay there until Sunday evening. Since my social calendar wasn't too busy, I decided that was a great plan. Toby and Sabrina did all the planning all week, and on Thursday, we packed everything they wanted. Friday afternoon, a brand new red Jeep Cherokee pulled up in our driveway, and Sabrina jumped out of it. An almost identical woman jumped out of the driver's side, and Toby rushed over to hug the stranger. He and Sabrina brought the unfamiliar and obviously nervous woman over to me. "Daddy," Toby said, "this is Julie. She's Sab's mom, and I know you haven't met her yet." Julie held out her hand. "Hi, Oliver. The girls have told me so much about you. Thank you so much for inviting me to come with you this weekend. To be honest, I was a little jealous that they were spending so much time with you and not me." She smiled mischievously at me, and I immediately understood why her daughter was such an adorable little prankster. I looked at Toby, and she gave me a fierce look. My knees trembled, and I knew when to give up. The trembling intensified when I looked at Sabs, and she raised one eyebrow. "This is going to be great," I told Julie, regaining my composure. "We always have a great time." She wasn't stupid. She shifted her gaze from me to the girls, then back to me. "Oh my God," she said. "You didn't know, did you? The girls." She didn't have time to utter a word. She was buried under an avalanche of hugs and kisses and pleas. "Please, Mommy, don't worry about it. We're going to have so much fun," Sabrina said. "It's okay, Julie. Daddy will love you as much as I do, and he's a great guy," Toby said. "Look how he's just going along to get along." She untangled herself and looked around at them. "You two go sit on the porch and I'll talk to Oliver," she said. They showed some reluctance, and she said, "Now." They took her seriously and scattered. "I'm so sorry, Oliver. I had no idea," she said. "I'm going to take Sabs and leave. She'll be grounded for a month. God, this is embarrassing." She looked so small and embarrassed that I stepped forward and hugged her. She tensed at first, but then relaxed. "Yeah, it's awkward," I said. "They're very naughty, but you and I both know there's nothing wrong with them. Let me guess. You're single?" She looked up at me and laughed. God, she was cute. "No, I'm not single. Do you think that's the point?" "I'm pretty sure," I said. "Here's the thing. You're packed, you've got the weekend, the lake is going to be great. I'm not a bad guy, which you know from hanging out with Toby. Let's play along. It'll be fun. We can tweak them a little bit. What do you say?" She stepped back, looked around at the waiting faces of the girls, and said, "Yeah, let's go." I gave them a thumbs up, and they jumped to their feet and rushed toward us. I heard Toby let out an enthusiastic "Yet!" I stopped them and took them one by one under my arms. "Girls, that wasn't very pretty," I said. Sabs looked up at me and growled in her best Skeletor voice, "I am not cute." This upset us all, and I couldn't go on any longer. They were too cute and innocent. "We know what you're trying to do," I told them. "Stop it, I'm serious. You can't just take other people's lives for granted." "Yeah, but I love Jules and I didn't know how to introduce you to her," Toby protested. "Well, you could have just told me," I said. She looked a little sad. "It's okay, kitten, just don't do it again," I said. She brightened up immediately. Sabs pulled my hand. "Let's go. I can't wait. It's going to get nasty, Oliver, you'll see." Julie laughed. "Sounds like it should be the height of awesomeness to me, Oliver." But she's right. We're killing daylight. We grabbed 2 bags from her Jeep and climbed in. We secured the boat, and after fueling it with propane, we hit the road. It was a half-hour drive to the lake, and Julie sat up front with me. The girls put on some awful music through their Bluetooth connections, and we started getting acquainted. As it turned out, Julie had her own insurance company and was also a financial planner. During the conversation, I kept my eyes on her. God, she was so sweet. I wondered if Sabs would look like her when she was as old as Julie. She looked much younger than me, but it turned out she was only 3 years old. She was probably 5 feet tall, had light blonde hair down to her waist, and a beautiful tan. She had huge brown eyes, high cheekbones, and a perfect heart-shaped face with a widow's peak on her broad forehead. She was dressed in jeans and a button-down sweater, but she looked slim and trim. I didn't feel like peeking at her, so I didn't get a good look at her until we got to the lake. We took a parking spot for the boat and then the van. They took me outside while they changed clothes, and in the meantime, I hooked up the water. They came out when they were done changing. I went inside, put on my swim trunks and t-shirt, and we were ready to set sail. We grabbed a cooler full of drinks and hit the road. We pulled out of the restricted area and I opened the boat launch. We ran a couple miles around the lake and they were ready to go. The long t-shirts were removed and the girls appeared before us in their usual awkward beauty. Julie was something else. There was nothing clumsy about her. I said she was slender, but she was petite. She had all the woman in her. She turned and caught my gaze. She smiled and winked at me. Everything about her was perfection in miniature. "Done?" she asked. Her smile relieved me of my discomfort. Her teeth were perfect, too. I laughed. "For now, you know what you look like, Julie. I'm a man." She came over and sat down so she could talk to me and keep an eye on the girls. We spent 3 hours skiing, and Julie turned out to be very good. She steered the boat while I skied, and she was good at that, too. I wasn't as good as her or the girls. Physics was just against me, but I held my own. We got back to the park and they started winding down. The van had a great stove, but the girls wanted to cook outside. We got the camp stove out, and I built a fire in the grill in the lot. I grilled sausages and they cut and fried potatoes and onions and opened cans of pork and beans. We had cooked and packed a few meals at home, but it was our first night, and camp always cooks well. We sat down at the picnic table provided by the hotel, and were soon talking as if we had known each other all our lives. Julie became Jules, which is what the girls called her, and she liked it. And she called me Ollie. The girls mentioned several times that Jules was single, and I finally asked her why. "God, you're gorgeous, funny, smart, you have your own business, why haven't some man taken you in yet?" She was silent for a moment. "Well, the main reason is Sabrina," she finally said. "I was young and stupid, Ollie. I was in college and thought I had the love of my life. A week before I graduated from college, I found out I was pregnant. I wasn't too upset. We talked about getting married as soon as we graduated from college. So, I guess that plan didn't work out since you're talking about it in the past tense," I said. "No, it didn't work. 3 days after I told Brad, I found out he'd been cheating on me for a month. I dumped him and never looked back. When Sabes was born, I didn't have time for a social life for a while, and then I dove headfirst into building my business. By the time I was able to catch my breath and even think about dating, I realized I had this precious gift from God in my life, and I couldn't do anything without considering her." "I understand," I said. "I feel the same way about Toby. As long as I have her, she comes first for me. I can't put into words how important she is to me. She's everything that's kept me sane for the past 18 months. She placed her small palm on my hand. "I know," she said. "She tells Sabs and me everything. I'm so sorry, Ollie." "Yeah, life can be a bitch sometimes." We both sighed. We looked up and saw 2 pairs of approving and loving eyes looking at us. They were talking in whispers as they sat in camp chairs under the shade of the canopy. "I love your daughter," I told her. "It almost seems like she's mine, all the time she spends with us." "She loves you too," she said. "She told me the other day that you look like the father she never had." When I looked at her, those big brown eyes turned liquid, and a tear rolled down one small brown cheek. I brushed it away with the back of my finger. "She's a wonderful girl," I said. "I think her mom is a special woman for raising a girl like that. And she's very brave for doing this on her own." She smiled, flashing her eyes, stood up, kissed me on the cheek, and stepped back to the girls. We had a great weekend, and as she drove away from our house, I walked over and knocked on her window. "Jules, would you mind going out with me next Friday?" I asked. Sabs squealed with delight and Jules smiled his ingratiating smile. "What time?" 6 o'clock? I asked. "We'll have dinner, and then we'll do something, okay? Oh, and Toby can stay with Sabs while we're gone." "That sounds wonderful, and of course." She kissed me on the cheek and they left. Toby was waiting for me in the entryway. "So? She asked. "Did you ask her out? Did you kiss her?" I put my arms around her and slapped her butt. "Yes, I did, and none of your business." She squealed, and the same sound was made by Sabs. I knew it. She's perfect for you, Daddy. I love her so much, and Sabs is like a sister to me. I shrugged. What happens, happens, Toby. You can't make it happen. Stop playing matchmaker. She pressed her face against my chest. I know, Daddy, but you were never going to do anything but just love me if I didn't do anything. It's not like I didn't enjoy being the only woman in your life. I laughed. Well, you'll always have a place in my heart that no one else can touch. You're my baby girl, and that will never change. She purred and snuggled up to me for a minute, then left to take care of Toby's business. Our first date went well. I invited her over to play racquetball. She was new to the sport, but she had played tennis and the mechanics of hitting were about the same. Once she got used to the rules and hitting off the walls, she did well. It didn't hurt that she was a natural-born athlete either. She was fast as lightning and could change direction much faster than I could. Her diminutive size helped too. After work was over, we sat at a table near the court, drinking and relaxing. She grabbed her cell phone. Let's take pictures of the kids, she said. We struck a pose with rackets and goggles, and she took the picture. They responded immediately, and we had a good memory. We both showered, and I took her out to eat. There was some really good Italian food, and we made pigs of ourselves. We finished our wine, Jules sat next to me in the booth, and we just leaned back, talking quietly and relaxing. It seemed natural for me to put my arm around her, which I did. She snuggled up to me and smiled. I thought again about how sweet she was, and realized that she would always be sweet. That was something that wouldn't change with age. As we pulled up to her house, she leaned over to me and gave me a waiting look. I realized she wanted me to kiss her, and I did. I wanted to kiss her even more than she probably wanted to be kissed. It was long and delightful. Her lips were soft and sweet, and she tasted like wine and cherry chapstick. As we moved farther away from each other, I noticed the drapes moved. I think we have an audience, I remarked. She giggled, becoming very much like her daughter, or maybe her daughter was like her. I'm not surprised. You know they're trying to hook us up, right? Are you okay with that? I asked. She blushed. No, I like everything I know about you, Ollie. Me too, I said. We'd better get over there before they rip the curtains down. We met every Friday for 4 months. We were getting closer and closer, and I wanted our relationship to grow. I didn't want to pressure her, but some of our dates were getting pretty hot towards the end. I also found that I enjoyed having her as a friend almost as much as I enjoyed having her as a girlfriend. We chatted constantly on the phone. She would text me funny messages or just a few words several times a day, and I did the same. I would see something or hear something, but I knew it would make Jules laugh and I needed to share it with her. We became very close, and I knew everything about her life as she knew everything about mine. We started having dinner together, all of us, every Tuesday, and just spending time together, playing games, and I grew to love Sabs almost as much as I loved her mother. They were very much alike, and if you knew one, you knew the other almost as well. There were subtle and significant differences, but they were both utterly adorable. And those differences only emphasized the similarities. Life was wonderful, and the only overshadowing factor was Rachel's constant presence. She was still a part of Toby's life and therefore mine. I wanted nothing to do with her, and the mere sight of her annoyed me. She wouldn't stop trying to talk to me every time she came to pick up Toby or I drove her to her grandparents' house. She still lived with them. Along with Jerry, she had lost her job at the clinic and was now working at another private clinic on the other side of town. If she annoyed me a lot, I would ask if I had heard from her. That quickly put a stop to her attempts. How long will it take you to forgive me? She asked on one such occasion. To forgive you? For what? I asked. As far as I know, you don't believe you've done anything wrong. Not once have I heard, forgive me, Oliver. I was wrong. I'm sorry I tried to make Toby believe you were a liar. I'm sorry I tried to take her away from you. Tried to rape you during the divorce. And worst of all, not once did I hear, I'm sorry I cheated with that dirty girl behind your back. I didn't hear her then either. She couldn't take responsibility for her actions. I didn't know what it meant to forgive her. I had reconciled and calmed down. I hadn't forgotten, but I wasn't going to spend a minute being bitter about it. People have the right to do stupid things. They have the right to divorce you, dump you, end their friendship with you, and you just accept it and move on with your life. People do shitty things every day. At that moment, I felt like punishing both cheaters, but I quickly stopped myself from doing so. Their punishment was that they were who they were. They had to live with themselves. I, on the other hand, intended to live with myself, and that meant leaving the lies and cheating in the past and living my best life. Rachel was an unhappy woman, and I sincerely wished any misfortune in the world for dear old Jerry, but it would not come at my hand. May God or the universe punish them. I took no part in this game. She became even more miserable when she found out I was dating Jules. I left Toby overnight at his grandparents' house, and she came out to the car and stopped me. I heard you're dating the mother of one of Toby's friends, she said. I just looked at her. Is that true? She asked. That's my business, I said. Like hell it is, she snorted. I'm your wife, I have a right to know. You have a right to shit, I told her. You're not my wife. You found your soulmate and it wasn't me, remember? Then this thing called divorce happened. My business isn't your business anymore and your business isn't mine. Back off, Rachel. Don't stick your nose in my business anymore. When I left, I was all worked up. Damn it, that bitch just couldn't let it go. I told Toby what happened. She was just as pissed off as I was. I ended up taking her to her grandparents and Rachel took her out of our house. From then on, Bob or Cindy, the grandparents, would come to our house and pick her up. This took away a major source of stress in my life. On the 7-month anniversary of our trip to the lake, I asked Jules out on a date. We went to a nice restaurant and club. She didn't drink much, only a beer now and then, or one glass. That night, she had 2. I raised an eyebrow when she ordered a second one. She laughed. Yeah, I'm wild and crazy tonight, aren't I? You're as perfect as ever, I said. Do you really think so, Ollie? She tilted her head to the side. Because I think you're pretty perfect too. If I'm so perfect, why haven't you asked me to spend the night? I must have looked stunned because she laughed. Didn't you even think of that? I found the strength to gather my thoughts. Yeah. Yes, Jules. I haven't thought about anything else since that first day on the boat when I saw you in a bikini. When we started dating, I realized you were something different, special, and I didn't want to pressure you or scare you off. You won't scare me off, she said. I told the girls not to wait. Really, what are we doing here, I asked. Oh my God, Jules, let's get out of this place. Do you want to spend the night with me? She blushed, took my hand, and let me lift her to her feet. More than anything right now. She practically clung to me when we got out of the car and held onto my hand all the way home, resting her head on my shoulder. I let her out when we pulled into the garage, and she snuggled against my side all the way to the bedroom. We fell asleep in each other's arms and made love twice during the night, once on my initiative and once on hers. The next morning, I woke up lying on my back with Angel half lying on top of me, her hair covering us and her cheek resting on my shoulder. I just watched her sleep, mindlessly playing with her hair until she opened her eyes. My place is here, Ollie. I know, I said. Would you like to wake up here every morning? She opened her eyes and looked at me. You mean living together? No, honey. Well, yes, but I mean, will you marry me, Julie Barnes? She raised her small left hand between our faces and wiggled her fingers. Ooh, she said. Something seems to be missing. Hold that thought, I said. I started to get out of bed. I'll hold that thought, she said, but I can't hold anything else. I want to go to the bathroom so badly. I laughed. Go ahead. I'll meet you back here later. She left and I went down to my office, remembering to use the restroom. I got what I came for out of the safe, and when I came back, she was already lying curled up in a ball under the blanket. I climbed in and took her left hand again. I looked into her eyes and saw only love there. Julie, will you marry me? I put the ring on her finger. It was too big, and we would have to resize it, but it was just right now. She took it in her hands and looked at it. It's beautiful, she said. It looks antique. Where did you get it? When did you buy it? So, remember when I told you I was going to the auction? That was about a month ago. Yes, I remember. They were auctioning off the estate, right? Yes. I didn't tell you that I saw this ring in a catalog and went with the intention of buying it and asking you to marry me. It was made in England around 1810 for the Duchess of Avon. It has a long history. Do you like it? I love it, she said. It's the most beautiful ring I've ever seen. Are you going to answer my question? I asked. What? Oh, Yes, Oliver, yes, I'm going to marry you. Oh God, yes. I laughed and squeezed my bride in a hug. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Subscribe to the channel and watch for the next video.